Beta 480 Standard Edition right now, and I've been riding it for a few minutes now, enough to kind of start forming an opinion. So I'll start with the engine, and I like this engine immediately more than the 430 that I rode. It feels easier to ride. The 430 is kind of a weird in between, like it's a big engine, but it's not quite as a there's a 430 going ripping. This one feels like more like a KTM 500 or even something bigger. This feels like a big thumper. So if you're thinking, hey, I want a big thumper that's easy to ride, I can ride a gear up, it's predictable, it's gentle, you want the 480, you don't want the 430. The 430 is just, it's, I would say unpredictable is maybe not the right word, but less predictable. Because all the betas are really predictable, but this engine is just playful. And as a weirdly, this bike feels lighter on its feet for some reason than the 430. And it might be the suspension as well, but it feels easier to ride. So I really like the engine. The 480 is really nice. It's, I'd say, probably pretty comparable to a KTM 500. Very easy to ride, feels nimble, almost feels, it definitely feels more nimble than I'd say a 500 actually. This feels like an in-between between a 350 and a 500 to me. Or like a KTM 350 and a KTM 500. So if you're in between those two, maybe a Beta is in your future. Ooh. And let's move to the suspension. The Sachs suspension on this bike works way better than on the two-strokes. It feels kind of like the Explorer does. Absorbs all the little chop really well. It's very confidence inspiring. So I actually really like the Sachs or the ZF, whichever one they are now, on this bike. I would probably prefer this to the KYB, especially for a dual sporting type of situation. I feel really confident in it. But it does bottom out much easier than the KYB does. So if you're going to hit stuff hard, it will bottom out. Really good traction on this bike. It really puts the power down. Better traction than the 430 for sure. Ergonomics are really good. Typical Beta. It definitely sits a lot lower than the KTMs. So I can flat foot this bike no problem at 511. It's an inch lower for sure than a gas or a Husky, and it is probably 2 inches lower than a KTM. So it's very easy to ride from that perspective. And I'm sitting down, the suspension on this feels way better than it does on the two strokes. So the valving they have on this is much plusher. This feels much nicer. And the seat is not very comfortable, but depending on what you're doing, might be okay. You probably want an aftermarket seat. This is probably one of the more uncomfortable seats. Everything control-wise on Betas I find very natural. They fit me super well. I know exactly where all the controls are immediately. I don't feel like I need to adjust anything on these bikes. So that is a huge bonus. The bars are really good position. All the shifting, brakes, all is really nice. Love Beta brakes. My favorite brakes, I would say. Perfect balance of bite and progressiveness. Like, I think I have more feel of this rear brake than I do almost anything else. Yeah, KYB would not have bottomed out there. This bottoms out, hits the wheel hits the fender, or something, somewhere it hits. But it's, yeah, it's kind of predictable. It's not bad. So yeah, I did not think I was going to like this bike. I actually really like it. I think this would make, if you're like 4 strokes, this would make a really good, good 4-stroke dual sport. I don't know what gear was in there, like 4th. Lots of traction, no problem going up there. It's super muddy here today. So this does seem like it flames out a little bit easier than the 430, but still the fueling is actually really good. Like, find a little straighter section here. So I'm going to be in 3rd gear, and I can whack the throttle open and it doesn't flame out, which a lot of bikes will. 3rd gear, you know, going barely any speed. So it logs really, really well. That's something I always found about Beta 4-strokes, the fueling is on point. So let's see, what else? Yeah, I really like this bike. Not gonna lie. I think Betas look sweet. The balance of it is very nice. Really easy to ride, it's really low speed stuff. And it feels very playful. Like, I don't know if it's, I'd say it's probably almost as playful as my KTM 350, but in a different way. Like, it almost reminds me of my DR 650 with like that really gentle, predictable power. And that's really nice. So I really like this bike. If you're looking for a dual sport or a trail bike and you like big thumpers, or you're between a 350 and a 500, I think this might be a good bike for you. And they did nail the suspension on it as well. So there's nothing I don't like about this motorcycle.